Hello again, YouTube family. Thanks for joining me on this video, and let's dive in. This video is, as you can tell, I'm sure, by the graphic to my left, pertaining to the Derek Chauvin trial. Derek Chauvin was convicted on all 3 counts he was charged of. That includes second-degree unintentional murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. And Derek Chauvin, the longest portion of the trial was the prosecution. They presented a lot of expert witnesses. They presented police from the police force that Derek Chauvin was a part of, the Minneapolis Police Department. And his defense was pretty small. Did not take all that long as far as the length of the trial, and I believe the jury deliberated for only about 4 hours or so before bringing the guilty verdict. Guilty on all 3 charges against Derek Chauvin. He is now going to face sentencing in about 8 weeks. He's looking at potentially up to around 40 years in prison. He's 45 years old. So if he was to get 40 years in prison, that would take him to his mid-80s. If he lives that long, I mean, none of us are guaranteed that many years on this earth. And so Derek Chauvin, at a maximum, would be looking at being in prison till he's in his 80s. I was pleasantly surprised by the verdict. I did not expect him to get indicted on all 3 charges. I expected maybe 2 of the charges, most likely 1 of the charges, and then I still had that fear that he would be acquitted on all charges, because that happens so often when police do something wrong. It's very common that police do something wrong and get acquitted. That's not the case. There were people celebrating in Minnesota. His family was happy to get justice, what justice there is. I mean, I don't necessarily consider this justice because George Floyd is still dead. I mean, the result of the trial is not going to bring Floyd back to life. And that's the tragedy of it. Someone lost their life, and that life's not going to be given back to them. And with that, I want to go to this crazy video from the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi.
Carefulness. So we thank God. We thank Jesus, because we were praying to Him all along. Right, darling? We thank God. They are people of faith. They conveyed that to me on the phone, but they've conveyed it all along. So as it'll be 8 weeks, according to what the judge said on this, before we know the sentencing, but that's part of the justice of it all as well. Mr. Clyburn has been a solid, steady force for all of us here, because this was a traumatic. My little granddaughter, who just turned 12, she said, "Why is it taking so long?" It didn't take that long, but we all saw it on TV. We saw it happen. And thank God the jury validated what we saw. So again, thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice, for being there to call out to your mom. How heartbreaking was that?
And that was Nancy Pelosi after the decision was announced. And she apparently was trying to see how much pandering and virtue signaling she could squeeze into a short speech. And she talked about thanking God, thanking Jesus, right? We were all thanking Jesus. We were all praying to Him. She referred to Floyd's family being people of faith. They conveyed it to her on the phone. And then she realized, as she was saying that they've been conveying it all along. And me, myself, I'm sure his family was a family, were people of faith. But the thing that got me in this video, the end of it when she was saying, "Thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice, for being there to call out to your mom." And then she was asking, how heartbreaking is that? That's heartbreaking. He died. But that whole statement of, "Thank you for sacrificing your life for justice." I mean, George Floyd died. And if he had his choice, I'm sure he would rather be alive. I mean, just because you are a prominent politician does not mean you need to rush out as soon as possible to get your face in front of cameras to say something to pander to your base. Which, I mean, from that video, that's all I was getting from Nancy Pelosi. I don't know how much sincerity. I mean, I can't tell you what's in her head, what's in her heart. I don't know how much sincerity was there, but that looked so much like a political cluster F. The people around her, I don't recognize the people around her. I don't know if that was her entourage from Congress, people in her caucus from the House. But just because you can say something doesn't mean you should say something. Just because you want to pander to your political base doesn't mean you should. Just because you can open and close your face hole doesn't mean you should rush in front of a TV camera and open and close your face hole. Nancy Pelosi and her husband are worth, I don't even believe it's tens of millions of dollars. I think they're worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Extremely rich. Extremely rich. She's in her 80s. When you're that rich and that prominent and you suck at saying something that badly, why not hire someone who's a talented writer, who's looking for work, to write something prophetic for you to say, something wise, something appropriate? I mean, it in no way, shape, or form to me seemed appropriate for her to say, "Thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice," because I don't believe George Floyd wanted to die that day. George Floyd wasn't wanting to be a martyr. He wasn't wanting to die with a dude kneeling on his damn neck for nearly 10 minutes. And that's what you get from politics. You get that kind of from someone like Pelosi. I mean, she is a politician through and through. She's a corporate politician. She takes in the corrupt money just like any Republican you don't like, just like any Democrat you don't like that takes the corrupt money. In the House, there are more and more Democrats who don't take that corrupt money, who are not part of the establishment. You have fewer people in the Senate that way. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, I believe, during the 2020 Democrat primary, wasn't taking the corrupt money, wasn't holding the corrupt fundraisers. But that's what I don't get, is Nancy Pelosi rushing to a camera to say something that inappropriate. I mean, and maybe it has to do with her age. Maybe she was trying to say something off the cuff, feeling like that would be genuine. It would seem more genuine if she was saying something off the cuff. But I've got to say, if that was her off the cuff, she sucks at being off the cuff. She needs to write stuff down and have something better to say. That was abysmal. So we got a good decision in the Chauvin trial. He was convicted on all 3 counts. It's a rare thing. Out of all of in the last, I think it's 15 to 18 years, out of all the police shootings, he is like the 7th police officer to actually be convicted of wrongdoing in shooting people. and what George Floyd shined a light on. And I mean, let's face it, there were protests not only across this country, but in countries around the world over his death, because there are other horrible police departments in countries all over the world that brutalize the citizens they are supposed to be protecting, when the reality is we know what police protect. They protect property owners. They protect business interests. That's what they're there for. They're to protect businesses so they don't lose money. And Nancy Pelosi also protects business interests as a representative in Congress. And I don't know how many people have criticized her for this abysmal speech, but it was horrible. And she came off like a slimy, pandering politician in that speech. To me, that's my perspective. Maybe you have a different one, please. If you disagree with me on any of my videos, leave comments, let me know. But that's my video for this episode. Derek Chauvin was found guilty. He should have been found guilty because he murdered someone. And so it was a good decision. Unfortunately, we have politicians that make bad decisions to rush in front of TV cameras, because that's what they do. Politicians rush in front of TV cameras before they're ready to open and close their face hole. But thanks for watching. Please give me a like if you like the video. Please subscribe. And by all means, have a good day.